worth remembering right from the start. Okay, perfect. I'm also allowing people to come in as I see them coming in, since I'm the co-host. Yeah, so one thing's for sure. People have asked me already, what can we do? Because remember, I said already, we're all leaders. What can we do as leaders to at least look after ourselves so we can lead other? Oh, muted. So we can actually lead others in the best way possible. Yes, and the subjects we've already talked about. If you've been here before, and I know many of you have been here before, and I thank you for coming back, because I hope you appreciate this information that Edulight and Key Leadership together bring to you, and hope that it'll help you develop into the leader that you meant to be, the leader that you want to be, the leader that everybody else needs you to be. So self-care is very important in that. And there is many things, and it's not just eating healthier, sleeping a bit better, and doing some exercise. Those are core parts of self-care, of course. But so many people they also think on the other side that self-care is that we need to go to expensive spas or expensive weekends away to fancy hotels, which are very expensive and we can't afford it. No, it's not. It's not. Those are choices that you can make if you've got enough money, but you don't need money to look after yourself. I know it sometimes adds to the problems because it causes a lot of stress, which can even lead to burnout. But you don't need money to start looking after yourself. What you need is the awareness that you need to look after yourself and how to do it. And one size doesn't fit all. It's the same with leadership development. Everybody develops differently. That's why I have already a variety of leadership articles, newsletters that arranges things, and we can't do everything. I'll go a little bit back about the whole self-care part, and that started in 2020 when we all know what happened, and we got all the fear we never wanted coming through our television screens, from our politicians, from so-called scientists, from the mainstream media. We couldn't turn around and we heard how many people died, what happened to this, and how many more cases, and all those kind of things. The truth is coming out, by the way, but I mean, regardless, that is all we heard. And I sat there, and I mean, I'm huge in personal development, which I started when I was 17 years old, as well as martial arts, Ki Aikido, at the same year. And that's quite a few years ago, as you can see by the gray hairs. But there was nothing on your social media. There was nothing in the news. There was nothing from your politicians to tell you how you could become healthier, how you could live a better life, how you could make sure that you would become healthier. So I thought, hold on a minute here. By the end of 2020, I said, apart from the fact that the figures didn't add up, and as I said, I don't want to even talk about all of that, because that would take a whole lesson all by itself, that the so-called conspiracies are actually becoming true. But outside of that, and that's also a part of leadership. Leadership is not always what people, to become friends with people, that you say what you think they should hear. Quite often leadership is saying things that you need to tell them that they need to hear for a variety of reasons. And that's also a part of your responsibility and accountability as a leader. Don't remain silent, because I was just listening to my friend and mentor Les Brown, and if you don't know who Les Brown is, Les Brown is the #1 motivational speaker in the world, and he's actually celebrating his 80th birthday today. So I was listening for an hour to him earlier on, part of my self-care, because I mean, I listen to him a lot, and he's my friend and mentor. He's an African-American, by the way. If you have never heard of him, go and check him out. And his best speech yet was, "It ain't over until I win," in the Georgia Dome, many, many years ago, in front of 84,000 people at an Amway convention. Brilliant. It's half an hour long. But he said, and he mentioned it again actually on this today, he said, evil prevails when good men and women do nothing. So doing nothing never was, never is, and never will be an option. Welcome, Asha, as well. Great to see you here again.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. And therefore, if you need to do what you know you should be doing, but you remain silent, you become part of the problem, not part of the solution. Real leadership is about providing solutions, about connecting with people and collaborating on solutions. Like the same as Edulight and Key Leadership Institute are collaborating, not only for solutions, but to bring information to you so that you can find a solution within you and around you. So self-care is then I said, this is not happening. This can't be happening. Nobody's talking about what we can do to look after ourselves, because I said this before, the person who is responsible for your health is the person looking in the mirror every day. The person that looks back, that's the one who's you're responsible for. And you might not always like what you see, but do something about it. Don't just keep looking at the problem and say, okay, I am too this and that. I don't believe in myself. I've got no self-esteem. I am overweight. I am this. I am whatever. I'm too old. I'm too young. You're always something, but that doesn't mean that it's always wrong. And if you don't like it, do something about it. And that's the same about your health and well-being. Now, I started doing Facebook Lives. And I thought maybe I'll do 5 a week, because I didn't want to do the weekend. But I thought maybe I'll do 1, possibly 2 weeks. I did 44 Facebook Lives. And as I started digging more into everything outside of what I already knew, because some of the values like listening and respect and attitude and gratitude, those are all values that, and we've already talked about values. If you haven't been there, you've missed out. And I hope you stay with us from now on. But and I put all of those 44 Facebook Lives. I redid them actually, because there was a lot of interaction. So I redid them and put them on my YouTube channel as well. But after that, people said, can you write some of that down? And as you now see behind me, I did, and that's what I called it. Self-care isn't selfish. Becoming healthier happens by choice, not by chance. And great leaders make good choices intentionally on a daily basis. And what happens if some of the choices as a leader you make are not so good? Then you've got experience. And you can learn from experience. And unfortunately, experience always comes after the event, not before. So as you know, in the dictionary also, success is always after work. It comes after experience. That's the only place it becomes later. But you need to really start thinking about, what do I need to do to look better after myself? Now I mentioned eating. Yes, all these kind of things help. And I'm talking about eating. As a leader, you need to eat well. That doesn't mean that you need to eat rabbit food every day of the week. But if you eat badly at the moment, then start with 1 day a week to eat more healthy. If you've got a family, get your family involved in shopping for food, also in preparing of food, and try to use healthier. Arthi, who unfortunately could not be with us today, she is a great chef, and I mean I always watch in awe of how she prepares food, because especially all the food, but she uses natural ingredients. I've got a garden, a small garden, where I grow quite a few different things, and then I get them, and she uses them fresh out of the garden. We can all grow some food as well, which I recommend you do with the prices of food going up. But it is definitely not about having to completely overhaul, because I know people, including in my family, who are on diets all the time. And then when they finish the diet, what happens is they feel better, they've lost some weight, they look in the mirror and they like what they see, and they say, okay, and then they stop. However, what happens is they then go back to the habits they had before they went on a diet, and then they wonder why everything is going back to where it was before. So even I would not recommend dieting. I would recommend change your lifestyle. So find out just on the eating habit. Find out what you eat for 2 weeks. Write it down, and then have a look at it, and look at the kind of things that you should not be eating. I don't say don't eat any of them anymore. I don't say if you do, don't eat pizza and potato chips and all that, but don't, if you eat them every day or every second day, start cutting back on some of those kind of things without going on a diet. You need to be, you need to be a little bit more disciplined for those kind of things, and you need to have some perseverance. But once you change your lifestyle just a little, whatever changes you make will make a huge difference. I hope that makes sense to you already. And I see Alex as well said we kind of that holiday feeling even on everyday life. And absolutely right, Alex. Especially if you love what you do. That's a subject for a whole different time, because I could talk about that for an hour. Because if you don't live within your passion, if you don't live within your purpose, if you don't live your God-given purpose on this earth at the moment, you're missing out. And unfortunately, other people miss out on the purpose that you're meant to have. But again, even with that, and there is that again, it's part of self-care. So I mean, I hadn't planned on it. Well, I haven't planned any of this. I can talk from my heart about this kind of subject, but I'm glad that people put some comments in the box, and I'll speak into that. But have you ever, I mean, a holiday, for example, as Alex said there as well, have you ever been excited as a kid or as an adult that the next 2 weeks you've got holidays, you don't have to go to work, you might even go away on holiday? Do you know the excitement that gives you and the peace that gives you, that this morning you don't have to wake up to an alarm clock? You can lie in bed for a little bit longer if you want, or you're excited you're now on holiday and you're going to see things and do things with your family or friends. Now that excitement that is really that inside of you, that does so much good mentally, physically, emotionally, even spiritually, because all these areas are part of your self-care. And if you, for me, it doesn't matter what religion you practice, or even if you practice no religion. You can be spiritual, and that means that you believe in something bigger than yourself, regardless where that leads to. And I'm always very careful to say, I mean, I'm brought up as a Christian, Protestant Christian, but I mean, we actually, I always think that we need to respect everyone. Artie actually put a post in today about her value of compassion. She writes weekly notes on compassion, and in that she always says that we don't necessarily need to like everybody we come into contact with. However, the way we show respect and are respectful to the person in front of us is a direct reflection on our character and our behavior, not theirs. Oh, I'll just mute you. There we go. Oh, yeah. So, there's somebody talking. I can't find them. But yeah, so again, that means that in every area, I'm just going to have a quick look to see where this person is. It's silent. However, that means when we have to be respectful to the person in front of us, that means not only because of who they are, but also what they believe in, the color of their skin, the tribe or background they come from, the age and gender they decide to live in, and all other kind of things, that their political affiliation. I mean, we've seen in America now how the mainstream media has really tried to split. Oh, we've got somebody speaking. So we really have seen how the country is divided, and it's not because many of them don't even want to admit that they believe that something good is happening now, but because they are from the different side of the fence, they must hate each other or dislike each other. I've seen it in Ireland and even in the west of Scotland still, where all my family live, and I've been brought up in Scotland mostly, even though I'm a Dutchman. Um, that Protestants and Catholics still hate each other with a vengeance. Now, we're not born with hate, but hate is the poison that we drink every single day, and it damages us more than it will damage anybody else. That's why we've also got the value of restraint, the value of forgiveness, the value of boundaries. Those three alone will already help you in your well-being. You need to understand them and you need to practice them. But as I said, there's so much more. Then even sleeping. As a leader, you need to sleep well. And sometimes we're so busy, we are so engaged in our work, or we have deadlines to make, that sleeping is something that we again leave by the wayside. Now, it's not all what people say, oh, you need to sleep 7, 8 hours a day. That might be good for you, but it depends more on the way you sleep, on your quality of sleep. You can have 4 or 5 hours of quality sleep, which is better than 8 to 10 hours of bad sleep. And when I say bad sleep, uh, do you wake up in the morning tired? There is a few reasons for that. First of all, what do you do for the last half hour before you go to sleep? Now, I'm smiling a little bit, but no, I'm going to elaborate a little bit on that. I don't want to know what you do elsewhere, but what I mean is, do you listen to the news before you go to bed? Do you read a newspaper before you go to bed? Do you actually watch horror movies or something negative? Do you have an argument with your spouse or your children and then go to bed and try to sleep? These are all negative things, and the last things that you think about will carry on in your sleep. So if it's negative, you've got a negative energy in your sleep, and then you wake up in the morning um, tired. That's why I also say to people, uh, don't um, don't watch the news. Don't switch off your social media and all those other, unless you use your social media to look at something like a motivational speech of Les Brown, or Eric Thomas, or Zig Ziglar, or Nick Vujicic, the guy with no arms, no leg. If there's something motivational, that's good because that lifts you up before you go to sleep. But try to go to sleep at peace with yourself. And then the other thing is, now people get up in the morning, or they're still in bed, and what do they do? They switch on the news again, whether it's on the television, on the radio, or they grab a newspaper first thing. It sets you up for the day again in a really bad way. So the same when you wake up, do something, exercise a little bit, maybe do some yoga, meditate, listen to something motivational. All these kind of things are really going to help you before you go to sleep and when you wake up, to have a better quality of a day, and therefore also a better quality of a sleep. I hope that makes sense to you. So it's a quality of your sleep. And exercise, the same thing. I mean, I don't know if you've ever done, or this year again, have got your New Year's resolutions. New Year's resolutions mostly don't work, only for the very few. And I explain that because it's a fad. People say, okay, um, next year I'm going to do this. I'm going to stop smoking. I'm going to eat better. I'm going to exercise more. I'm going to do, and you can fill in the gap. So the 1st of January, it's going to happen. First of all, people have had a party on the 31st. That still carries on to the 1st, especially if you live in a place like Scotland. They know how to party. But so the 1st of January is already away. So now we'll start the second day. But the drop-off rate of New Year's resolutions, I don't know what it was for this year, but last year was the 17th of January was where people started dropping off. They stopped going to the gym. They stopped doing all these kind of things because the excitement had worn off. But next year, I say to people, first of all, and when I look at the exercise part for starters, people now all of a sudden say they're going to the gym. And I've seen it in the gym, January, February, very busy. But people go to the gym and then they go and stand on a running machine for an hour when they've never done any running before. So now what happens the next day? They hurt. They have got, I say they've got pains in places that in muscles they never even knew they had muscles. So now they hurt. And then they say, oh, I can't go today because I'm hurting. And tomorrow it's still hurting a bit. And before they know it, they don't go anymore because they didn't enjoy it. First of all, when you start an exercise regime, if you have never done exercise, take a walk for 15, 20 minutes 3 times a week. That's exercise. That's more than you've done. You get the picture. Do more than you're doing now. Do different than you're doing now, but do something. And if you don't like what you're doing, so you can set up your personal development plan or your personal self-care plan, which should be alongside, and it could be one in the same if you do it in the same way. But if there is something that you do and you don't like, change it. Don't give up altogether. I always say people have Happy New Day, and people say, "Why do you say Happy New Day?" Because then, if you say Happy New Day and you don't like something today, you don't have to give it up for the rest of the year until the 1st of January. You can start again tomorrow. Find out what you don't like today, which I said already is experience, and then do something different tomorrow. Do something different in your exercise. Do something different in your eating habit. Do something different in the way you sleep. But do something, people, do something. Because if you want to lead and you want to live a long and happy life, leading many people, leading few people, leading quality, providing quality to people, whatever way you want to lead, ensure that you do something. Take action. Because we know I can give you as much knowledge here today as I do every week. Give you knowledge, gives you insight, give you some things that you can implement or do something with. But knowledge is not power. Knowledge acted upon is power. And evaluating that action that you do every day is even more powerful. Because if you want to walk into tomorrow a better person than you were today, then you need to ask yourself 4 questions at the end of the day. See, I keep it simple. What did I do right? What did I do wrong? What could I improve on? And what should I never do again? Even those 4 simple questions you ask yourself at the end of the day and answer them. Don't just ask them. Answer them, and then I can guarantee you tomorrow you will already be better. Maybe by 1%. But if you improve 1% every day in 1 year, you will look back and you says, "Oh, I'm not where I should be, but I'm not where I ought to be, but I'm certainly not where I used to be." I have a few stories about that as well. I had a feeling in martial arts quite often that I felt I wasn't progressing, but looking back 6 months later, I knew I had. So, and Derek says as well, empathy and self-care and leadership. How a leader sets different between them. Again, I will come back to that when I start answering the questions. So yes. Even asked them at the end, Derek, to remind me if I don't get to it again, but I see the question here. So now we've got the basics, but we're looking at so many things. If time allows, I've created outside of the book, it's mirror image. I've also put a self-care series together with 10 videos and about different subjects, where I also have a small workbook with them, because I said action is power, is powerful. And that action comes from awareness. See, what you have now, while you're here now, and I appreciate you being here, because you are leaders. And the reason you are real leaders, because you're here willing and wanting to learn something today. It doesn't need to be everything I say. It doesn't need to be everything that comes your way. But if you just pick something from here that you say, "Hey, this is going to help me in my life. This is going to make a difference in my life." And then I hope that what the next thing you'll do when you learn is that you will pay it forward, that you will help other people with that too. And as these are now getting recorded as well on Zoom, there will be Zoom recordings that will be available to share them with other people, because keeping things to yourself is not leadership. That's why I share what I've got, and that's why we keep coming back every 2 weeks. I mean, we did it last week and this week, because as those that were there the week before noticed, we had a disaster with which wasn't fine for anybody. But yeah, thank you, Sana, for putting those questions in there that I just mentioned. So we're looking at so many more things. Gratitude. Do you know how healthy it is to have gratitude? I have. If I can get it out from here. This is my oh, you can't see. Yeah, this is my gratitude journal. I write in there every morning for something that I'm grateful for something I was grateful for yesterday even. But a gratitude journal Gratitude is something that will bring joy to your life, especially when things are not going so well. And it says, you write three to five things in your journal, in your gratitude journal, every day that you're grateful for. And it doesn't have to be complicated. I'm grateful for the air I breathe. I'm grateful for being healthy. I'm grateful for having food on the table. I'm grateful for friends. And the list goes on and on. I'm grateful for opportunities to learn, whatever. And the thing is, what happens is that there is days that you might not feel that you've got anything to be grateful for. Then you can write that day, you can write in your book, because you can open your book and leaf through all the things that you've been grateful for so far. And then have a look at a few pages. It'll cheer you up, because it'll remind you for the things that you have. When it's very difficult sometimes, when you're down and negative and something seriously happens. I get that. But that day you can actually write in your book, I'm grateful for my gratitude journal. And if that's all you do that day, you've done something. Now, I mean, there is a whole long list, and I'll talk into something because practicing gratitude is actually great for the mind and the soul. Learning to say no without feeling guilty. We've talked about that in the values, so I don't want to elaborate on it. But if you can do those kind of things without feeling guilty, because it's about self-care. The power of good habits. Do you have any habits that do not serve you any longer? And if you don't know that, ask somebody else what some of the habits are that you have they don't like. They'll tell you if they're honest. And then change them, because habits can also be changed. If you sleep well, as I said, you live well. The value of compassion. We talked about that because my wife has written the value of compassion, and on her website, arthymore.com, you can actually download the value as well as the poem of compassion for free, no problem. The power of the human touch. When we had lockdown, how many children suffered because they couldn't play with each other. They couldn't put their arm around each other like children do. They couldn't hold hands with each other. But it's same for adults. The human touch is often undervalued until we haven't got it. And the trauma that children will still live through because of the long lockdowns they had, that they had no connection with kids of the same age. Self-talk. What you say when you talk to yourself, that's a book actually. But we talk to ourselves much more than anybody else. And if you sometimes listen to it, would you say the things you'd say to yourself, to your best friend, or to your husband or wife, or your spouse, or your parents, or your children? A lot of them, the things that you say to yourself, you probably wouldn't. Then don't say them to yourself. Being intentional, acceptance of yourself, reducing stress, having thoughtful communication. That means you need to think. And as I said before, thoughts become habits, thoughts become actions, action become habits, and habits become our destiny. So if you want a different destiny, if you want a different outcome in your life, if you reverse engineer that, you need to start thinking differently. How do you start thinking differently? Start learning, start doing different things. There was a guy called, now I can't remember his name. Charlie Tremendous Jones. And the reason they call him Tremendous Jones, because everything was tremendous to him. I met him a few times, and people, including myself, used to stand in line for a hug with him. Adults, by the way, these are all adults, a long line. But he says, life is tremendous. It's actually a book by him as well. I've got it as well. Phenomenal. You can imagine what it's all about. But he said there is three things that will decide and govern the rest of your life. And number one is the things you hear. Number two, the things you read. And number three, the people you surround yourself with, the people you talk to on a daily basis. Now, if those things have the biggest influence on your life, then it might be, as a leader, you need to make decisions about your inner circle, for starters, because if you've got a poisonous negative inner circle, you will never get anywhere. But I mean, your inner circle at the moment could be the friends. Les Brown said it again earlier on today. You are very similar to the 5 people you associate with closest. And I don't necessarily mean family who are around you all the time, but your friends and your associates, your colleagues, the 5 people you surround yourself with, even within or outside of your family. He says it is so close that you earn within us 10% of what the 5 friends you choose to hang around with earn. And he said, I was hanging around with people who were broke, so I had to get rid of them because I didn't want to stay broke, and I was broke at the time. So these are just some of the crazy things, and you know, the healing power of thoughtfulness. Because we just thought about thought, you know, everything starts with a thought. The screen we're looking into, the chair you might be sitting on, the different ways foods have been grown, the planes that fly overhead, the cars that drive on the roads, the phone that you might be listening into at the moment. Everything starts with a thought. So you need to, if you now look at that, the things you hear, the things you read, and the people you associate with, some of you need to change 1 or 2 of the things, but some of you might need to change all 3 to be the person, to become the person you want to be. Because it's not where you are right now. When you look at the things, what am I reading all the time? Am I reading the newspaper? Am I reading negative news? I have by choice not bought a newspaper for probably closer to 40 years now, but certainly 35 years. I've not bought a newspaper by choice. I invested my money and my time in books, success books, positive development books, leadership development, communication, all those kind of things for many, many years. We have not got a television. The things you hear, the things you read. So we haven't got a television by choice, sorry. Again, we've got a screen here that came with the house, but then sometimes we watch a movie on there. And then we have, now, don't get me wrong when I say, you know, get other people around you if the people around you don't support you, don't get you where you want to be. And that's not using people. You need to also help other people up. But you cannot do that if you're at the top all the time, because you need to fill your own cup too. So for you to be able to help other people as a leader, you need to be able to learn from and with other leaders. And many of them are above you. So they might not be in your physical presence. You can get all the kind of leadership, all the kind of positivity online now. You can get leaders out of books. I read John Maxwell books before I ever met him, before I ever studied with him, and I became one of his executive directors in his team. That was long before I ever met him, because I gathered books and all those kind of things. I wanted to speak better. I said more than 35 years ago, if anybody's going to teach me to speak, it's going to be Les Brown or nobody. Be very careful what you wish for. But it was intentional, and Les Brown became my friend and mentor. People say you're lucky. No, I imagine that for many years. Did I ever knew it was going to happen? I wasn't sure, but I loved the way he was, and I wanted it to be. So I talked it into existence. The way you think about where you're going, the way you use your mind. I can do a whole session just on mind power and mindset alone. But mind power can cure you or can kill you, and that you choose. Which do you want it to be? Do you want it to improve you, or do you want it to hold you back? So there is, again, there is a lot of those kind of things. And thank you again, Sana, for putting all these things in there. And then you need to have inner peace. Now, for that, you need to have some me time. You know, 5 minutes a couple of times a day, just to pull yourself out of the busyness and just sit. Maybe you don't need to do anything. Just take yourself into a secure corner and just sit there and have some time for yourself, whether it's just having something to read, having something to listen to, having a YouTube video to watch, something that inspires you and that makes you feel at ease. Maybe 5 minutes of breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth. And if you breathe out through your mouth and you hear this, that means you've got tension. If you're relaxed, it should be steady. Those are simple little things I'm giving you just now. Pick from it what you want. You can do them all, but do something, do various things every single day, you know. And then you have connect to your community. What is your community? Not only the inner circle, but connect with people. Think about your emotions, what your emotional status. Try to get some common sense, but common sense is not as common as people think. We all know that. Your attitude. Now, I must tell you, there's a guy called Viktor Frankl. He became a psychoanalyst and a psychologist and a few more ists. But he was a Jewish person, and him and his family were in the concentration camps during the Second World War. And he was one of the few who survived when everybody around him, including all his family, passed away. And he wrote a book about it, Man's Search for Meaning. It's a very thin book, but very powerful, because I'll just give you the synopsis of it. What he said in there was, there is one thing people can never take away from you. They can never take away from you your thinking, your attitude, your right to choose your own attitude. They can never take that away from you. And that is a choice. Your choice to think, your choice to have your own attitude is yours. So what kind of attitude will you wake up with tomorrow morning? A positive attitude or a negative attitude? And that's nobody else's fault, because I don't know if I've talked about response and react, but if you need to respond to life, not react. React is when outside circumstances decide who you are. When you become a leader, you better have it coming from the inside. You better have it coming from the heart. You better have it coming from a healthy heart, a healthy mind, a healthy body, because mind governs the body. Ki Aikido is all about inner peace and the mind, the power of the mind. But it is, your attitude is important. Your attitude decides your aptitude. Now, your aptitude is how high you can go. With a bad attitude, you'll never go anywhere. But with a good attitude, you've got opportunities to climb a ladder that you never thought was possible with a bad one. You never thought it was possible to climb the bad one anyway, because you blame everybody else for what's wrong in your life. But with a good attitude, you take charge of your life, you take charge of your well-being, you take charge of your personal development, and you become the best person you can be. I hope that makes sense. You also need to have patience, and celebrating moments is another crazy thing that we should do. If we don't celebrate the small moments, the big moments seem so far away, and sometimes we just give up. The power of hope is so powerful. If I had a time, I would show the video. It's about 10 minutes long, but I mean, I might even drop it in the group so you can watch it yourself. As it's one of the 10, 11 videos that comes in my self-care series, but I'll drop it into the Edulight group, then you can have a chance to watch it. And if you haven't become part of the Edulight group yet on WhatsApp, then you should. So also self-validation is also very, very important. But hope, people, you cannot give hope to other people. As Napoleon, he was a French guy, the Battle of Trafalgar, and you might not know all this kind of history, but there is more people. Somebody also keeps helping to watch the waiting room. There's somebody in there. Let me have a look. Hopefully they're not in there anymore. I just let some people in. Yeah, so, oh yeah, Napoleon Bonaparte. He was a very good French leader, a small guy, but he said, leaders are sellers of hope. My question to you is, what are you selling? How are you speaking hope into other people? And I know my friend Kelvin has just come home today from 30 days into schools and universities, talking hope and talking positivity and talking ideas into the young leaders of tomorrow. But you can only do that if you have hope inside yourself, because if you don't fill your own cup every single day, your cup will empty, and you'll have burnout, and you'll be no good to anybody. So before you can give hope to other people, you need to be hopeful, because you cannot give what you haven't got. And it might be silly. How is hope part of your self-care? Oh, that is automatically, of course. How much better do you feel if you hope for your future? If you have hope and you know that things will get better, even though they might not be, better will come. A friend of mine in our values-based leadership program, who's actually one of the head trainers in the program, in America, Canadian, he actually that is better must come as part of his website and also his email address, and it is better must come. But not if you keep a negative attitude, not if you have no hope. And that's where you come in, because if you have hope, you can help other people to get some hope. And there is a saying that where there's hope in the future, there's power in the present. And the other thing is, where there is no hope, the people perish. Most of us will know that one too. So there is so many things that I can talk about, but I also want you to just, there was a few things. I just want you to be very clear on self-care. I hope you've got an idea now, but let me be very clear. Self-care is not selfish. Self-care is not self-indulgent. Yes, it sometimes can be, but it is not. That is only additional extras. It is not expensive or luxurious. Again, it can be. It is not a fad. It's not something that happens sometimes. It is not the same for everyone. It is certainly not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of courage and a sign of understanding of self. And it's certainly not something to feel guilty about. That you had to say no to some people because you had planned to do something for yourself. That you don't let it go by the wayside. And I'll talk into the personalities of leaders. In fact, that might be a good one, maybe even for the next one, I don't know yet. But the different personalities and how we lead from different angles, because people, that Gandhi and Nelson Mandela were different to Martin Luther King as a personality, and they're certainly different to Donald Trump. Whether you like him or not as a leader, that's irrelevant, but they're very different, and they're all leading from different angles. But that's for a different time. But some people, they are very reserved, and they want everybody to be happy, so they will give up their own life for others to be happy. And that is no good for you people. That is not good. So never feel guilty when you have to say no to somebody else because you've planned something with your family, you've planned something for yourself that you need. Because when you say no once, you might say no the second time, you might say no 3 times before you do anything. You say no to yourself. And that, by the way, is selfish. It's not selfless. That is selfish, because you feel that you need to give to others for you to feel good. Well, yes, you will feel good, but if that's the only way you feel good, you better stop right now and start building yourself, because your self-esteem is more important. So I said what self-care isn't. I'm also going to tell you what self-care is. Self-care is about self-preservation. As I said, if you don't fill that cup every day with something, it's going to empty. If you give more out every day than comes in, it's like finances. If you spend more than you earn, you're going to be in debt. The same with your self-care. It is self-love. You need to love yourself, because if you can't love yourself, you'll never be able to love somebody else before. I can tell you stories about that too, including my personal disasters. Self-compassion. That is very different than self-love. There is, of course, over similarities. And Arthi can talk really good into that, because she lives in his compassion. It is a necessity. I think you hopefully understand that by now, that it is necessary for you to have self-care, to look after your personal health and well-being. It is fluid. That means that it's changing all the time. It doesn't stay the same all the time. You might change your exercises. You might change some things that now in the next couple of months or in the next couple of weeks, I need to really concentrate on this because I feel or I have or I need. I hope that makes sense. And it's intentional. I think I said this before, but it's very different of having good intentions, because intentions is a maybe thing. People with good intentions might do something good occasionally, but people who live an intentional life and are intentional do something good continuously. And it's rejuvenating. because it's invigorating to feel good. It builds your emotional, your physical, your mental, and even your spiritual energy up from where it is to where it could be. But it's a process. And it's, as I say, it's nourishment for the soul, for the body, for the spirit, as well for your emotion. And it's an act of giving yourself permission. Now, there's, I mean, just a little story about how people, even with eating, eating sometimes can be a way to suppress or soothe negative emotions such as stress, anger, fear, boredom, sadness, loneliness. Major events in your life that have really taken you down and you're really depressed, and the best thing is just to eat your way out of trouble, which never happens, of course, because it gets you into more trouble. America is now 70% overweight with 40% seriously obese, and diabetes levels are out off the chart with young people living, more young people now living with diabetes than not, which is a disaster, of course. Now, at a continent in Africa where up to 280 million people, 280,000 people a day die because of hunger and poverty and malnutrition, that is hard to believe. But I mean, that's the other side of the scale. And neither of them are any good, by the way. You would think we could share things a bit more equally. Again, not one for another type, but that's also about leadership. But I was bullied as a little kid until I was 12 years old. I was obese. I was as wide as I was tall, and people used to call me names, especially my friends, which was hard to take. I became the class clown on the outside because I didn't want people to see how much it hurt me inside, but it did. And at age 12, I grew to my height now, which is still 6'4". I'm Dutch and we're the tallest nation in the world. So I grew to 6'4", and the bullying from the outside stopped, but the bullying in here carried on for years to come. So much so that by age 16, because I kept everything inside, I kept worrying about things. What will people think of me? I need to fit in and all those kind of things. I wanted to belong. And so many kids suffer, even adults suffer that they need to belong because they feel like outsiders. But I did, and at age 16, I got an ulcer. So that's not very healthy, the life I had. Yes, I wasn't obese anymore. I still didn't see myself as thin because of hair that was going on. That's how people with bulimia and other eating disorders see themselves, and that's where the problems is. My daughter suffered from that, but I couldn't live like that anymore. At age 17, I used to do a line across the sand, and that's something is that in a way it's a leadership decision. I decided I didn't want to live like that. Now, when people I say that to people, they sometimes think, "Oh, did he think about committing suicide?" No, no, I've never ever done that because apart from not being able to do them, I've got too much to do. I've got too much to live for. I've got too much I need to do. But also, I could never do that to my family because those that do, and I understand the desperation that makes them do, and I think it's courageous sometimes to do that. But those that do, and men even more so than women, by the way, I think in the UK it was 78% of suicides are men. Every 2 hours, I heard last week, in the UK, a man commits suicide. And that's because they can't get their emotions out because they keep quiet about everything. So men need empowerment too, by the way. But I got a little bit of the mark. But my grandmother always used to say, she was on the farm and she was kind of pleasantly plump, I would call it. She says, fat people, she says, fat people are happy people. Now, I was getting bullied and I wouldn't wear it. But I made a decision. I didn't want to live like that. And when you shut that kind of door, when you shut one door, other doors open. And one of those doors was that I got, somebody handed me a personal development book at age 17, which was How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It was a change. It was my start, my first rung on the ladder to personal development, which is um, going on. And today I've got a book lying right beside me here that I read nearly every day. I take care of myself every day. I exercise a little bit every day. I do certain things that make me feel healthy. Do I eat other foods that I shouldn't be eating sometimes? Yes. Do I do some things? But I say, I want to lead. I want to lead well. I want to impact people. I want to impact millions more lives. And for that to happen, I better stay well. But it takes discipline. It takes self-discipline to be exact. And Somebody once said, hunger is the first form of self-discipline. If you can control what you eat and drink, you can control everything else. Now that's a powerful statement if you think about it. So I've said a lot, and there is so much more, but take time out what matters for you. Thoughtfulness is a massive healing power. So doing something good, intentional for other people, that gives you a feeling of significance, and it gives you direct dividends into your own mental, physical, and emotional health. What you say to yourself, garbage in, garbage out. I always say quality in, quality out. So change what you listen to, change what you hear for yourself. Exactly. Oh, we've got somebody. But there is so much more but all I can say is there is a lot of valuable information about the subject. For most people, it doesn't take a lot to get healthier, but it does take something. So please stop being too busy to get healthy and start getting healthier today, because you owe it to yourself first, you owe it to your family, you owe it to your community, you owe it to your company, you owe it to your country, and maybe even to the world. Because you might not be where you want to be. You might not know what your purpose is. You might not have found your why yet. And that is a story for a different day. But you are leading because you're here. You are leading because you're learning. You are on the path to a better life. And I always say, think about where you want to go. Because as I said, we all have a passion. We all have a purpose. We all have that God-given purpose that we are here for this earth for. And don't let it dive with you, as Les Brown always says. The richest place is not the gold mines in South Africa, the oil fields in the Middle East, or the stock exchanges around the world. The richest place is the graveyard. And I mentioned Les Brown a bit more today, as I said, because it's his 80th birthday today, and he's my friend and mentor, and I'm glad to have him still in my life. And I hope he's going to be there for a lot of time yet, because he's been instrumental to positively impacting my life, and I hope I can positively impact your life. But he said that, and he said, because the graveyard is where books were never written, where songs were never sung, where inventions were never invented, where people had great ideas and dreams, and for humanity. Who says you cannot be the next Einstein? Who says you cannot be the next whatever you want to be? But you are worthy, you matter. And by increasing your leadership, by intentional doing something every day to look after your health, after your personal development, you will become better tomorrow than you were today. And it takes small steps. It's not going to be, sometimes the leaps are bigger than others, but as long as you take small steps in the right direction, because when the end of life finds you, and again, Les Brown said that today, when the end of life finds you, it better finds you climbing a new hill rather than slipping down an old one. I hope that makes sense for you, and I hope you take care of your self-care. Thank you. So if you've got any questions, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Coach Jan Roberts, and happy belated birthday to our dear friend. I tuned in to his presentation. It was quite very scintillating. I hope that people will go and watch it after this. It was even live on Facebook. What an incredible session we have just had, and a huge thank you, Coach Jan Roberts, for sharing such valuable insights on the importance of self-care in leadership development. You have always shared wisdom, experience, and practical strategies with us, which have truly enlightened us. And we deeply appreciate your time and effort in guiding us through this crucial topic. As we all know, leadership is demanding. It requires resilience, it requires clarity and emotional strength. But so often, leaders get caught up in serving others and achieving goals that they forget to take care of themselves. What Coach Roberts has reminded us today is that self care is not a luxury, It is a necessity. A leader who neglects their well-being cannot lead effectively for long. Without, I'd now like to open the floor for questions and insights. If you have a question, a key takeaway, or an experience you'd like to share, please raise your hand and I'll give you the opportunity to speak. Let's keep
Yeah.
our contributions concise and to the point so that we can hear from as many of you as possible. Your thoughts and reflections are valuable, and I encourage you to share them with us. Before we begin, allow me to add my own thoughts to this conversation. Self care for leaders goes beyond just getting enough rest. I repeat, self care for leaders goes beyond just getting enough rest. It's about being intentional in protecting your mental, emotional, and physical well being. It means one, setting clear boundaries to avoid burnout and maintain balance. Two, prioritizing rest, reflection, and mindfulness to stay focused and present. Three, engaging in continuous learning and personal growth to remain an effective leader, just as we are doing right now. And four, surrounding yourself with a supportive network that keeps you accountable. As leaders, ladies and gentlemen, we cannot pour from an empty cup. The stronger and healthier we are, the more we can serve others effectively. For those who are joining us for the very first time, let me take a moment to introduce Edulight International. We are an organization dedicated to leadership development, personal growth, and professional excellence. We believe that leadership is a lifelong journey, and we create spaces like this together with our partner KR Leadership from South Africa to inspire, challenge, and equip individuals to become the best versions of themselves. We hold these empowering webinars every Monday, featuring expert speakers and thought leaders who help us grow in different aspects of leadership and personal development. We encourage you to join us each week, take part in the conversation, and apply what you learn. Now, let's hear from you. Please raise your hand if you have a question or insight to share, and I'll call on you. Let's make the discussion engaging, insightful, and impactful for everyone. You can as well share in the chat box your name, the country you're coming from, the organization you belong, the position you hold in the organization, if any, and any other information you deem befitting for this August assemblage. I am your moderator, Kelvin Yamache, and also the CEO for Edulight International. Thank you once again to Coach Jan Roberts, and thank you all for being here. Let's continue the conversation. Please, raise your hand. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Kelvin, I promised earlier on, Derek, he also already put a question in the comments box, which I'll answer first. And I see Temi Topi actually put his hand up there as well. I think he did. But Derek's question was Derek Zalang. He said, empathy and self-care in leadership. How a leader sees the difference between them. Okay, the difference between empathy and self-care. Well, that is very good. And it's a very good question, actually. But the answer is very simple, because empathy is when you put yourself in other people's shoes. So that is where you start thinking into other people. Empathy is you feeling for other people. It's not, some people say empathy and compassion are the same, but that's not, because compassion is really where you really get involved in the other person's life and all that kind of stuff. But empathy is very simple. You know, you might have seen the meme that don't judge other people when you've never walked 1,000 paces in their shoes before. It's that kind of thing. So you try to when you empathize with other people, that doesn't mean that you necessarily know exactly what they've been going through, but you empathize them. You know, you put a hand around their shoulders, and you know, you say, I can't understand what you're going through because I've never gone through it myself. But it says, I really feel for you, and is there anything I can do with you? So you empathize with them what they're going through because it's all about them. It's not about you. Now, self-care, on the other hand, is all about you. And it's got to be all about you because if you want to provide better empathy and better compassion and better kindness to other people, you better become kind and show compassion and show empathy to yourself first. I hope that there's a lot more I can say, but I want to keep it simple, so I want to give everybody a chance. But that is the basis, the basic difference between empathy for others. And it's really it helps your feelings and your emotions to help them along and to be sincere in helping other people in their time of need. That's where empathy comes from. So yeah, that's my answer. So anybody who's got a question, I don't know if there's Asha has raised her hand.
Greeting, coach. It's amazing listening to you. Thank you, Kelvin, for the amazing work you do. Just a quick add up to what you've talked about self-care and all of that. There's a book I've been reading lately. One is The Art of Being Alone by Renuka, which is more of not looking at yourself uh, uh, and thinking that alone time is not a good time for you and looking for distraction to get your thoughts away, but rather going deep down to understand yourself better. So, and there's a quote that says the most painful and scariest thing in the world is to look in the mirror and not recognize the person staring right at you. And this is more happens with a lot of stress, people not believing in themselves, and a lot. There's something I had put in the chat box earlier, talking about if you have positive, life affirming beliefs, you will have a happy and healthy life, you will be popular, and you'll get along well with others. But on the other hand, if you have negative, destructive beliefs, you will be doubtful, fearful, suspicious, negative, and in constant conflict with other people in your life. And that's why I said you give what you have within you. So if you have a lot of hope within yourself, you have a lot of self-belief, then definitely, consciously or unconsciously, people will believe in you because you carry that. If you have love within yourself, then that is what you give people. If you carry bitterness within yourself, then definitely that is what you give. And then there are just some days where you miss yourself more than you miss anyone else. And that is when you need to find yourself, not suppress the voice in you. Thank you.
That's a very powerful insight and absolutely true, of course. We've briefly touched on that whole subject. And I think, the first person you need to be very comfortable with, as you said, is the person looking in the mirror. The person, because how can you ever some people actually hide in a crowd. I mean, there is something about a group of people where it is that you can't be, there is, being lonely is far more dangerous than being alone. You can be lonely in a crowd and nobody will see it because of the mask you maybe have, or you hide it well. You're suffering and nobody sees it. I remember that from a kid when I was a bully. Nobody knew I was getting bullied and how I felt. But the fact that I ended up with an ulcer, then people said, how do you ever get one of them? And I had to explain that it's, in the 80s, in the 70s actually, when teenagers wouldn't get ulcers, it was busy professionals and those kind of people used to get them. But I had one. I had the displeasure of having one, but I never got medicine for it. I started thinking differently. I started behaving differently. I started reading different material. Well, I started reading because I wasn't a very good reader anyway. Especially when at age 17, I went from the Netherlands to the UK, to Scotland. So I needed to start reading in English as well, which slowed me down even more. But there's no excuse because even in Dutch I didn't read that many books. But when I found my hunger and my desire for personal development books, that made me every day become more comfortable with me. And that's why I always say to people is when you ever compete, only compete with the person in the mirror. Don't look at your competitors, collaborate with them. Don't look at other people and you want to be better than them. No, you want to be better than you every day because that's what you've got control over. And if you're going to be better than you every day, before long you are much better than you were. And people around you are going to notice it because it talks into be the change you want to see in the world. That means that when you become better, people around you are going to feel better. And especially what you said as well, Asha, when you are negative, you know, you give what you've got. So if you're negative and that you can't be surprised when the people around you are negative all the time, because the five closest people to you, if you're surrounded by them all the time and you're negative, you might well be the problem. We've seen that in an organization not so long ago. There was one person in the room. I can't divulge exactly details, of course, but there was one person in the room when we looked at the challenges of the organization, and she wondered what the problem was when everybody in the room knew that the biggest part, not all of it, but the biggest part of the problem was her, and she didn't recognize it, and nobody dared say it to her. So there is those kind of things. But I think for leadership, we all have blind spots. We all have things that we don't know. That's why we need to keep learning. We need to have emotional intelligence, EQ. We need to really be comfortable with ourselves, because if we can be lonely, if we can be alone, some people can't even do that because, as you said, Asha, they don't like what they see. That is not really good for your leadership prospects. If you don't like what you see in the mirror, because apart from anything, you're going to take it out on other people. Hurt people hurt people. Might have heard that saying before, and again, there is a lot to it. But if some who were bullied, um, some people had things done to them. They were bullied when they were younger, and when they were older, they became the bully because they wanted to beat the other one. They never wanted to be in that position again. Yet they did exactly to others what was done to them, or they were beaten. So they knew what felt like to be beaten as a kid. Yet when they were older, they started beating others, and they started beating their own children. You wonder, how does that happen? Because the hurt was never sorted out. And for yourself, another great thing is, my wife is a specialist in that too, in so many things, is emotional freedom techniques. It's called tapping, but look it up. I've seen people change from years of hurt within 20 minutes because of emotional freedom technique. And that's what it is. It frees your emotions it unblocks you so you can become more. But again, that's a whole different story. But very well said, and a book that you should put in the comments box so people can start reading it as well, because we need to be comfortable in our own skin. And I know this because I wasn't when I was much younger. I wasn't, and it took a while for me to get there, because that's a process we all have to go through. I also, by the way, if you've seen it, I put my LinkedIn. In fact, it was the last LinkedIn post. My newsletter, but if you get there, you can also subscribe to my newsletter as well. But that gets you to my newsletter, and then you just click subscribe, and you can also find the other 27 newsletters from before already. And this week on Thursday, my next one, number 29, will be about self-care. I noticed somebody else has written something in the group. Let me have a look. And then we need to find it. Oh no, there's just a message that Alex from another group, where I posted in there as well, and she's got a biblical group, and she came along to support me, so that was very good. Just a message of congratulations. So yeah, anybody else has got any questions? Temitopi, my friend.
Hi, Mr. Jan. Hi, Mr. Everyone. Hi, everyone. My name is Temitope Adegoke. Thank you so much, Mr. Jan. The reason why I want to ask this question was self-care is a great thing. I'm impressed with that. And also, if someone have this self-care, it really helps. But where I am really little bit confused, Mr. Jan, is that surround yourself with this type of people. surround yourself with that type of people, because I remember myself and my time when I was in school, they used to say it, but I found it really, really difficult to find the right person I need to surround myself with. So I want to ask, is it right if someone couldn't find the right person he or she could probably surround himself with, is it fine for the person to just focus his or her life alone, as you said, self-care, do everything alone and try to get probably a mentor who could probably, teach him, guide him or her through the way, and just see how things goes in the coming future? Because sometimes it might be difficult to find the right person to surround his or herself with. You might think you are surrounding yourself with the right person, whereas you realize that it's not even what one is thinking. Is just what I want to ask, Mr. John. Thank you very much.
Yeah, again, Temitope, a great question. And on what we've already said, the first thing is, it is better to be alone than to be around the wrong people. However, being around the wrong people will only be a sign that you're growing. Because most people, I mean, I've seen it so often. Even when I go back to Scotland, there's people sitting in the same corner in the same pub talking about the same things as they did 25 years ago, and they've never grown. And one of them said to me, Jan, you have changed, and they laughed at me. Now I already said that never throw people away, but you need to make a conscious choice, and it might be a tough choice, not to spend so much time with those kind of people. And I mean those kind of people, the people that are at a totally different level that you should not be around. I mean, as a youngster, if the parents don't look after them and they end up with bad people, they end up in gangs, and then the parent later on finds out, wonder why the kid got hurt or even died, and they never knew. No, you need to pull them out of there, because the kid is under influence of peer pressure and all that kind of stuff. But it is, first of all, it's better to be alone than to be amongst the wrong people. But then the second thing is, when you are looking for other people, you better know who you are. You better know what your values are, what you stand by, the things you would never compromise on. You better know yourself well enough, because you also need to know where you're going. Because if you need to find better people, better for what? Do you need to find people who will get you to where you want to be? And that's, again, Les Brown said it, it's not so difficult. He said it again today. All these things are coming out today. And he also says there's no such thing as coincidence. Coincidence is God's way of staying anonymous, which I quite love, actually. But he said it's challenging if you don't know where you're going, for starters, then what kind of people are you going to surround yourself with? If you have an idea where you want to go, then you, if you, yeah, what Les said, just coming back to me now, he said, it's not too difficult, he said. If you want to become someone or something, you better find somebody who's already done it, and ask them questions, or read about them, or do research on them. But most of these great leaders are quite willing to answer questions, by the way. Not that they've always got time, but maybe they've done it in books and all that, or on video. But find what they've done and do what they did. But that's one thing. But surrounding yourself with people that will lift you up. You better find out what does lift you up. Because it's not say, well, I don't like these people anymore. Why don't you like these people anymore? Why? I mean, when they said to me that Jan, you've changed, and they laughed, I laughed with them, by the way. And my only answer to them was, but you haven't. And they thought it was even more funny. And I thought it was sad, really, because you've never changed. You never stand still. So you go up or you go down every day. So that's why you need to work on yourself intentionally every day, including your health, including your mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being, and including your leadership development, of course, as personal development. But you need to start. Know where you want to go. Know the kind of people you want to surround yourself with, and why. It's not just so you can use them, because then if you're going to use people, you will soon get used. And you allow yourself to be used. You allow yourself to stay down. But you need to find out, where am I going? What is the kind of people I need to surround myself with, and where can I find them? Now, be the change you want to see in the world. I'll get back to that. And transformation begins in me. We said it in the values. They are to go together. But you need to find out, how can I become? Because you don't attract what you want, you attract who you are. Now, that's another powerful quote. You don't attract what you want or who you want, you attract who you are. So, who am I? What do I need to change in me to attract other people? And remember, you throw your thought out there. Asha said it earlier on already. If you're negative, you're surrounded by negativity. If you're positive, you're surrounded by positivity. So become more positive, become more active in your own development. And it's crazy, but start thinking, start making a list of the values and the characteristics of the people you want to surround yourself with. I mean, and it will come, but you need to become, if that makes sense. You need to take the change in yourself more serious than anybody else will, and you need to start that development, and at the same time find out the kind of people you want to surround yourself with. And again, over time that can change, but the kind of person, the characteristics you want them to have, the values you want them to have. But first of all, ask, have I got them? Because you attract what you are, remember? So, and if you don't have that now, just be honest and start working on yourself. And as you start working on yourself, doors start opening and other people start coming towards you, because you become a magnet of that kind of people. And the other people don't like you anymore. You don't have to push them away. They leave. Les Brown went to his best friend and he said, I can't spend any more time with you because I've been developing for the last 10 years and you have done nothing. And you are still in the same place you are. I say, so it said, it doesn't mean I will never spend time with you anymore, but I will spend a lot less time with you. And that is selfish. That is selfless. In a way, that is self-care, actually. That is where we need to look after ourselves, our own mental and spiritual, and it attracts us physically as well. So that is really where you need to go. If you haven't got the people around you and you don't know yet, be alone and work out what you want, who you want to be with, the kind of people, the kind of characters, the kind of values they have. And then the first question you need to ask when you figure that out, and again, that is fluid. Have I got those? Am I developing those? You don't have to have them all down yet, but as you start developing yourself in those things that you want to see in other people, that you want to surround yourself with, it's amazing what's coming your way. Your mindset, your mind governs where you go. So when that starts to change, everything around you changes. And that is self-care. Is there anybody else who's got a question? I hope it answered it though. Anybody else has a question? There's one in the chat yet. And by the way, there is not much in the chat this time, but if you want to save the chat, there is 3 little dots at the top. You can click on them and it says save chat, and then you can actually click on that and you can save the chat on your. It can't happen on mobile phones, but only on laptops. But somebody also asked. I'll answer the question first. Somebody arrived late. Let me go there. Maybe it's already been asked. Somebody arrived late and asked if there's any notes. There is notes the note taker is on here, but also this is being recorded, and I'm sure Edulight Kelvin will share it in the Edulight group. So you better be, if you're not part of the Edulight group yet, there is 2 groups, then you better become part. And I think Kelvin already would have put the WhatsApp group. Yeah, Victoria put the WhatsApp group in there. So click on it and join it, and you will. As soon as it's ready, you will be able to get the link of it. But Florence was touched by the phrase "you give what you have," and that you need to fill your inner cup first. I love that. Thank you. But the question was, I wanted to know how a young leader can peacefully cope with a colleague who's always defensive rather than trying to mutual understanding. Ellie from Burundi. Burundi, and thank you for being on the call as well. Oh, there's somebody coming in the waiting room yet. But that is, again, a very good question. When they're always defensive, don't, first of all, let them be at the moment. Because sometimes there's a reason why people are defensive. Maybe they're just putting a fence up around them because they don't want people to intrude, so they rather defend themselves and don't let people see the real self. But showing some empathy and compassion towards those people is already helpful. But never fight them, because if they're always defensive, that means they're always negative. But I mean, it would be great to listen to them and say, you know, I'm always intrigued by you, that, you know, when you always defend yourself, is there a reason why you're always defensive? So you don't have to say it out loud in front of people, but sit with them sometime and ask them some questions, and then listen. And when you really ask good questions and you really start listening, it's amazing how sometimes they at least become less defensive against you. I say, I don't understand it, but is there anything going on that you're always defensive? You know, why are you also always defensive? Because I don't understand it. Is there a reason for that? And they, hopefully they'll talk. But for you, you need to respond rather than react, because if you react to the defensive note of somebody else, which is sometimes it can be very loud and very angry, then you allow them into your mind, and it's your own fault, by the way. So you need to start thinking about, who is that person? What could be going on with them? Let's just treat them with compassion and kindness. And in time, it doesn't happen overnight, but in time, people will change. But start having conversations with them, and don't have conversations about their defensiveness, what they're defensive about, but start having different conversations. So tell me a bit about yourself. I mean, I've always been intrigued. We worked together for a long time and I know nothing about you. Tell me something about yourself. And what do you mean? Well, tell me something about, have you got a family? Have you got hobbies? What would you like to do? If there was one thing in life that you would like to change, what you would like to change in the world? Just some wonderful question that you have a totally different conversation. And because having conversations on something that people are already angry about or upset about will not make them any better. So sometimes it's better to have a conversation. They call it the third option. Don't have a conversation about either side, but have a conversation on something totally different. And most people respond well about asking them questions about themselves, because that's always the best place to start. I hope that helps a little bit.
Thank you. We were supposed to finish by 9:30. It's now 9:42. This time around, I really wanted us to keep time. I don't know whether there is anybody want to ask a question or just make an insight. Perhaps I just give one of you, and thereafter we will start rounding up. Is there any other person here who perhaps has some burning insight or burning question, so that we don't leave you out? Anybody?
There is one. Eric, the last one in the chat at the moment. And I see that Asha has also put the book, The Art of Being Alone by Ranuka Gavrani in there, which is very worth reading. And I must read it too, by the way. I've never read the book, but I certainly will. See, always learning. But the question by Eric was, how do you handle sensitive situations, especially upcountry communities that see hope in a leader? How can you handle situations? They always want leaders, want to comfort and guide them for long. How do you handle the situation without hurting them?
My dear.
Oh.
Kuchato.
Rabatsi, I just muted you at the moment. If you've got a question, please ask afterwards. But I don't know if I read this right, Eric, but I understand this right. But they always, a leader's job, I suppose, part of the leader's job is to provide hope. As I said, Napoleon said many years ago, leaders are sellers of hope. So to give people hope is something that leaders need to do, because most people are hopeless, are certainly not hopeful. And when people have lost all hope, again, I don't know who said it, but it says you might as well bury them, because that's all that's left in their life. So it is, tread carefully. How do you handle the situation without hurting them? See, if they give them real hope, there is no problem with a leader, because that's part of what they do. But if they see, I don't understand the bit where you say how do you, and if you're online still, Eric, if you want to open your mic. Oh yeah, you're still there, Eric. Can you elaborate a little bit when you said how do you handle the situation without hurting them? If you unmute yourself, it is easier to talk than read it from there. Yeah, please, Eric.
Thank you. The session has been insightful, and I really appreciate. My question, go direct to the question, is that sometimes I've seen leaders, especially from our country, when they go to a country, there's a situation or a scenario where that all the people, or most of the people, they see hope in them, and whichever situation they are passing through, they could want to be helped one way or another. Most of them, it can be overwhelming, and sometimes you realize some leaders stay, instead of going up country, they stay in the cities. So I was just getting your guidance. Maybe if I also become a leader, so I can find a way that I don't run away from up country. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I get it. Now it makes sense. Yes, it's easier to ask when you're still there rather than sometimes try to guess in a question. The first thing is, if you don't go where you need it, you're not a leader. It's simple enough. You think you might be a leader. It is easy. I always say to people, leadership is easy, like management, like running a company, like running a country. It's easy when everything goes well. But real leadership reveals itself when things don't go well. So if at the moment, and I don't know if you talk about yourself, but if at the moment a leader, let's put it that way, does not want to go up country because people rely on them coming with some hope and help and support and guidance and whatever else, I'll address that first. Then if people don't go to where their leadership is needed, you're not a leader. You want to manage the situation at best, but you don't want to be where you need to be. Like it's like plenty of these leaders during a war, they sit in a warm office in a big city or in a bomb shelter when they send everybody else out. There used to be people, some of the leaders in old battles, they were at the very front of the battle to encourage their men and to show that, you know, we follow a leader who's worth following. Braveheart was a wonderful film, and it showed you a fair bit in that how leadership was, and also what leadership wasn't. In fact, one time when we were at the Maxwell Leadership training in Orlando, in America, in the mentorship, we had a breakout room, and we went to watch the film Braveheart, and then we discussed all the leadership aspects of Braveheart, the film, and there was many of them. But the first one is, if you don't go where you're needed as a leader, then you've got leadership. Saying you're not a leader is a bit harsh maybe, but you're lacking in your leadership abilities. You need to build your leadership, and you need to find out why you won't go. The second part of it is, when you go, and I'll use your example, up country, and people always rely on you, then it is time to build leadership up country. So you're talking a little bit about delegation, that you build leaders. So you find people up country who have leadership aspirations, who've got leadership capabilities, who show what's the word I'm looking for? Who show possibilities. And you start working with the leaders up country, you start working with them and build them into better leaders. You know, you've seen the thing where a leader stands on top of a rock and lifts other people up, but he stands at the top, but he reaches down. So that means you need to go down to those. You need to find leaders up country that are worth developing leadership with, if that makes sense, and then start building them. It takes time, but first of all, you need to be there. But there is some leaders, depending in the personality they let themselves being misused, and eventually they start hating what they're doing. That's a different story for a different time. But for good leadership, find out why you don't want to go, start building your own leadership better, and then find every time you go up there, start connecting with people and see what their leadership capabilities are and build them, because you need to build leaders in areas that they need leaders. I hope that makes sense.
Eric, are you satisfied? Eric, do you find that answer satisfying?
Yeah, he said thank you in the box.
Yes, I find it satisfying.
Okay.
I really appreciate.
You're most welcome, and thank you for asking the questions and being on the call. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Eric. Thank you all. I don't see any other hand, nor do I see any other comment in the chat box. Wow, what an inspiring session this has been. First, permit me express my deep appreciation to you, Coach Jan Roberts, for sharing such powerful insights on self-care and leadership development. As I told you earlier, your wisdom, your experience, and practical guidance have always been, you have always given us a lot to reflect on. I know that many of us are walking away from this session with a renewed understanding of how vital self-care is, not just for our well-being, but for our effectiveness as leaders. Before we officially wrap it up, I'd like to take a moment to share a bit of my own journey with you. For those who have joined us for the first time today, my name is Kelvin Nyamachi, and I am the CEO of Edulight International. I also see your moderator for the day. I am an inspirational speaker, I am a teacher, I am a life coach, and I am a writer. Like many of you, I have spent years striving to grow as a leader, to serve others, and to make an impact. However, for a very long time, I had a completely flawed understanding of leadership. I used to believe that being a great leader meant working nonstop, always being available and constantly pushing harder. I thought the more I sacrificed, the better leader I would become. There were times I would go for days without proper rest, juggling multiple responsibilities, saying yes to everything, and convincing myself that exhaustion was part of the journey. I ignored the warning signs, the fatigue, the stress, the burnout, because I thought slowing down would make me weak. But I was wrong. I reached a point where my energy was completely drained. My mind felt cluttered, and instead of being productive, I was simply running on empty. I wasn't leading with clarity. I wasn't showing up at my best self, and the people around me, those I was supposed to inspire and lead, were the ones suffering because of it. That was my wake-up call. I had to unlearn the belief that self-care was selfish. I had to realize that leadership is not about how much you give until you collapse. It's about how effectively you can serve while sustaining yourself. I started making changes. And I recommend a book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari by Robin Sharma, to those who want to understand this matter in great depth. Now, these are the changes I made. One, I set boundaries, learning to say no to things that drain me unnecessarily. I prioritized rest and reflection, giving my mind and body the time to recharge. I embraced mindfulness, taking time to be present and intentional in my decisions. I also surrounded myself with a support system, and I can't put it any better than Coach John Roberts did. I sought guidance and learning from those who had walked the journey before me. And I'm gratified to see so many of them on board tonight. And do you know what happened? I became a better leader, more focused, more present, more creative, and more effective. And because when you take care of yourself, you don't just survive as a leader, you thrive. Before I hit the last nail on the wood, please permit me welcome Coach Jan Roberts once more to give us his parting shot. Karibu, Coach Jan.
Yes, and thank you for your amazing insights there and sharing part of your journey with us as well. It's great for Key Leadership and Edulight to be partnering in this journey and supporting each other. All I can say is about this very subject of self-care. It is not just one of the important parts. It's one of the most important areas if you ever want to become a great leader, because it's like entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurs, they are everything all of a sudden to everybody, and self-care is put on the back burner somewhere and usually get forgotten about until all of a sudden they find themselves burnt out, stressed out, or in a serious critical condition in hospital because they never looked after themselves because they were too busy doing rather than being. So I think for just please remember, wherever you are right now, take stock of where you are, who you want to become, and start noticing these things, start writing them down, because if you just keep them in your head, it's only a dream, it's only a wish. Start writing these things down and then start looking. Yeah, there's plenty of research. You can go even on my YouTube channel. They're somewhere, because I've also afterwards I talked about 52 different values. So it's in there somewhere. But there is values. There is value in looking after yourself and ensuring that you become the best person you can be. You owe it to yourself first and foremost to become that person, because you are here, you are learning, you are leaders, and we want to share all our journeys with each other because we are much stronger together. But for that, don't look back and say, I wish I had, because that's futile thinking. Think, I want to be somewhere. So figure out where you want to be in your emotional, spiritual, mental, and physical health as a leader and as a person, first and foremost. And then every day take simple steps to get there. Remember, Rome wasn't built in a day. Your health won't change in a day, but your health will change daily. Thank you.
Scintillating, Coach Jan Roberts. Each of us here has the potential to lead and inspire, but you cannot do that if you're running on empty. Let's change the narrative that leadership is about sacrificing everything. Leadership is about sustaining ourselves so that we can serve others for the long haul. As we leave this session, ladies and gentlemen, I want to challenge each of you to take action. What is one small step you can take this week to prioritize your well-being? Maybe it is setting healthier boundaries, getting better sleep, practicing mindfulness, or simply taking a break when you need it. Whatever it is, start today. Your leadership and the people you serve will be better for it. At Edulight International, we believe in continuous learning and growth. That's why we hold these powerful sessions every Monday to equip, to inspire, and to empower leaders from all over the world like you. So I encourage you to keep joining us, to keep investing in yourself, and to keep growing, because leadership is a journey and every step forward makes a difference. Thank you once again for being part of this discussion. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your engagement. And thank you for your commitment to growth. I look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, take care of yourself because great leadership starts from within. I was your moderator, Kelvin Yamache. See you next time.
Well then, take care. Good night, everyone.